This may be the most challenging podcast video that I've ever done. I meant for this to be a drive-by, but I'm just not sure I can explain it right. And I especially can't explain it that quickly. But I want to talk about how to invest wrong and how to invest right in car washing. The reason I'm bringing this up is I know doctors, investment guys, other successful business owners who have done outrageously well with their first couple car washes. And I know the exact same demographic that have done horrendously or did pretty good or outrageously well for a year or two and then crashed and burned. So I'm going to try to share to the best I can the difference of those owners. But understand the reason this is difficult for me is it's just so hard to know who to trust. And at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. How you can minimize the trust a little bit is just doing a lot of research and taking your time. Do not rush into this. And I am just going to talk to you about some of the things that those who have failed have done and some of the things that those who have succeeded had done. Okay, so let's go. And this is not because I preach this all the time. I always preach humble, hungry, smart. But for the most part, the more humble you are, the more humility you have, the better you're going to do at any business, especially a business that you have no background in. Now, again, we're talking about doctors and successful, investors, that kind of thing. Well, believe it or not, you can be very successful and very confident and still be humble. Humility is something I've searched the meaning for throughout the past 2 decades. And the way it's developing in my brain is that the more humble you are, actually, the more confidence you have because you're not trying to be right. You're just open to learning to say the right things and do the right things. You don't have to be right. So in other words, you have more confidence because you're not striving to prove something. You're listening well and learning. And in many ways, that gives you more confidence for the decisions you do make. It's a different kind of mindset. Now, what we're going to touch on first is tunnels or in-bays. And my background is tunnels. It's tunnels way before it was in-bays, folks, and was very successful at helping run a tunnel. It was run for 20, 30 years before I got there. It had certain things it was good at and still had average volumes of 60,000 cars a year. We took it to close to 220,000 cars a year. That's what we were tracking when I left, okay? 300 monthly plans to 4,200 monthly plans. 0 traffic count. It was all talent and crew. Okay, so we had a great crew, great leadership, great work culture, and we crushed it. However, but a few reasons for that is, frankly, I have a lot of professional sales training and I have a lot of retail experience. I have experience with human beings face-to-face, B2C. And some of those in the C-suite didn't have as much retail experience as I did, but they had some great leadership where the communication was open. In other words, we were all able to work in our strengths, minimize our weaknesses, and cover everybody else's weaknesses and have grace, okay? So why am I bringing that up? For most of you looking to invest, not all of you, but for the great majority of you looking to invest, a tunnel is not the answer. You should be looking at in-bays. There's a lot of reasons for this. If you're going to look at tunnels, you better have either retail experience or access to leaders who have ridiculous retail experience and work culture. Because at the end of the day, you have a lot more interaction, you have a lot more schedules, you have a lot more of everything dealing with your entry-level employees and dealing with customers. Also, they cost a lot more. The return on investment isn't as good as a proper express in-bay. I know that's not popular. Give this video 10, 15 years and it's going to be popular. It wasn't popular 6, 7 years ago when I started talking about this, and it still isn't even that popular. But the truth is the truth. In-bays are typically a better investment. If you're extremely good at the retail game, well, then yes, you will get more bang for your buck out of a killer tunnel. But there's more to it. You're going to spend way more. We just talked about that. And you have a lot more competition that's identical to you. And those 3 washes down the road, maybe they're not doing that great now, but they're one great manager away from doing fantastic. And maybe they never will. But you could have some serious competition. You get one good leader in there. And then how are you going to differentiate? It's more difficult to differentiate. With an express in-bay, what people don't realize, not only do you not have to worry about employees as much, but you also don't have to put your car in neutral, and you don't have nothing touching the car if you're touchless. So already you have differentiators for the business, meaning, let's put a little asterisk here. Let's talk about employees, right? And we're going to go right back to that. For those investing in some type of retail business, did you think the employee situation would be where it is 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago? We have to pay people a lot more now, and it's way more difficult to find an employee, even if you're paying them 2 to 3 times as much we were 10 years ago? Huh. Well, if we're looking at that as a vector, where's it going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now? Again, another reason I mentioned in-base, because the employee factor we could take out for the most part. So I don't want you to think about just today. I want you to think about 10, 15, 20 years, because that's the investment. Even if you sell, you got to think 10, 20 years out. And our employees going to be available? How our car's going to look? They're only getting more difficult to put in neutral. That's another trend. Those two trends, all those trends lead to, hey, an in-base is probably a better investment. We're not even talking about the actual investment. Okay? So employees, much more difficult. And going back to those two other differentiators, I know this is hard to scrape off Google and different things like that, but you just have to trust me in a few things. People are looking for a wash where they don't have to put their car neutral. It's getting more difficult to put your car neutral, and grandma she doesn't want to worry about with a car in front of her, a car behind her, someone yelling at her. Okay, it's a big deal. And people don't want anything touching their car. That is scrapable through Google. When you start to add a lot of this up, a proper express in-bay completely differentiates itself from a tunnel. You run a good tunnel, you still have 4 or 5, in my area, 10 tunnels within 5 miles you have to compete with. If you're a beautiful express in-bay, guess what? You could throw all that out the window. You're not really competing that much with them. You are competing because it's a car wash, but you're really different, and you have that going for you. So again, you have to decide whether you want to go with a tunnel or an in-bay, and no matter what people tell you, I wouldn't say it's as difficult as running a McDonald's, but do you want to run a McDonald's? You want to run a fast food restaurant because you're going to be dealing with the same kind of employees, you're going to be dealing with schedules, and maybe you won't need as many employees and as much schedule, but guess what is on top of that? Ridiculous amounts of maintenance, and you're going to have to know how to fix things, maintain things. It's a very technically advanced business. Now, that's something I personally take for granted a lot of times because I spent 20 years in the car repair business. I have 8 ASE certifications. My whole life has been wrenching. And then as the old tunnel I mentioned, we went from 300 to 400 members, 4,000 members, 60,000, 220,000 cars a year. We had myself, mechanically inclined, another guy, mechanically inclined, and someone who was a mechanical engineer. So we were not only able to fix things, but we could the engineer even engineered things from scratch and saved us a lot of money. It was pretty ridiculous. That's not usually the case. And I apologize, that's something off my radar that I usually forget. So you're going to have to keep that in mind too. Now, the reason I usually forget that is because I always gravitate toward the emotional side. And being a leadership guy, most people don't even know how to lead people, and they don't know how to do the retail thing right. So I forget you also need to know the mechanical thing. And I just had someone on the podcast to help remind me of that. He's like, well, yeah, we do need retail leaders, but then we also need at least one person that knows the mechanical side. Now, sometimes your installer can be there and do that. And it might make a sense a year or two in, but after 3 or 4, you need someone on site to do at least 80% of the stuff. And that can be trained pretty easily. And there are classes and schools for that. Now, on the in-base side, that is a factor, but not nearly as much. You're dealing with 1 or 2 or 3 machines compared to, 10 to 15 different entities, different machines doing different things, all timed up just right. And if you get the proper modern machine, there's a couple good ones out there. They really are pretty low maintenance. To keep up with the preventive maintenance would be okay. It's just much easier for just about anybody. So that's the first thing I want to get out of the way. Now, I want to touch one more time on that B2C customer, because this is where I see some faults happen. Now, again, doctors, lawyers, investment guys, all over the place. Where you need to be careful is if your life is in a professional environment, a B2B more type business. If you have 20, 30 years experience just dealing with businesses or investors, where you're not really dealing with the end user, you could still win at this, especially at in-base. But where you really need to be keen and listen well is understanding that most people are different than you. You need to understand the 25 to 65-year-old female who's busy with kids or grandkids, and they just need to get the car clean and out the door. I'm telling you, that's a different world than corporate. Just like if you had a tunnel or a McDonald's and you've been in corporate most of your life and you're leading entry-level employees compared to all these educated nurses and thises and that's, these other professionals. These aren't professionals. Now, I'm not saying there's one's good or bad. Please don't hear that. Anybody watching this, I don't think one's better than the other, but it's different. Those who are brought up through the better or worse, the university system, and then those who are grinding every day, there are some overlaps, but dealing with them as an employee is completely different. Next tactic would be start small. It depends on your region, depends on your local area. There are so many old car washes out there still to this day Not everywhere, but in a lot of places. And this is something that's trending that there isn't as many now as there will be. So we're at like the worst, not quite the worst place in time to buy old car washes. You could buy really old car washes pretty cheap before, then you couldn't. Now you kind of can't, but they're starting to go cheap again. And I see this trend. I personally think this trend is going to get better. We're going to see more car washes that are going bankrupt, and they're going to deals. There'll be deals, okay? There is a time and place to build new, especially in some rural areas. Don't discount the rural areas. But also for a lot of us, a lot of you are watching, why not start at half the price and purchase a rundown car wash? Again, this really depends on your area, but here's some things to consider. A, if anybody didn't tell you this yet, zoning is the number one barrier of entry to car washing. Okay, so getting permits and zoning, it does depend where you're at in the country, but for the most part, the great majority is absolutely insane. I know experienced operators that took 2 or 3 years to get their car wash up and running. They had all the capital ready, but it didn't matter. Everything got pushed back. Financing got pushed back. Zoning and permitting got pushed back. It can be crazy. Now, consider taking on an old existing wash, depending how it flows, depending how it's set up. You might be up and running in 8 to 10 weeks. With a rehab, you might be able to rehab the whole place and still have it running in 8 to 10 weeks. Potentially. A lot of variables there. But you can get your money working for you much quicker. And simultaneously, you can spend way less money doing it. This is the direction most need to consider. Pro formas. I did a whole video. It was a short video, but I did a short video on pro formas. You can watch that on this channel. Again, do your own research and research heavily because they're not what they're cracked up to be. I know sites that easily outperformed a pro forma 5 to 10x. And I know sites that can't do a quarter of what the pro forma said. There is a place for them. It gives you a baseline. A lot of it has to do with whether you're optimizing best practice. AI, ChatGPT, Gemini. In fact, let me try it right now. While we're on the phone, because I'm on the phone all day. I asked ChatGPT this a couple weeks ago, and it was wrong, probably by 5 to 10,000 cars, in my opinion. I asked, how many cars a year does the average in-bay automatic across the country wash? And what it's going to do, we'll see here. It's saying the average annual is 19 to 21,000 cars. I would strongly disagree with that. What it's doing is it seems like it's scraping the message boards. Okay, now here's the problem. There's a lot of people on the message boards that are sharing. There's a lot of people on the message boards that aren't. And there's a ridiculous amounts of in-bays out there. They're only doing 5,000, 8,000 cars a year. An insane amount. And the great majority aren't doing more than 20, 21,000 cars a year. Now, most of my clients, most of the people I know in my sphere, most of them are doing like 30,000 cars a year. Okay, but that's a real minor snapshot compared to all the in-bays across the country. So why am I telling you this? The 19 to 20,000 car average would be best practice, good flow, is still not your average in-bay. Many of these in-bays you might be able to pick up cheap are really only washing 5 to 8,000 cars a year. Maybe even 12,000 cars a year. The reason I'm bringing all this up is if you just shove this into AI, then you're thinking, okay, I can just open an in-bay. I'm going to do 20,000 cars a year because that's what the AI told you. And where it's gathering its information isn't correct. Now, I'm telling you, you could do 30,000 cars or more per in-bay, and 20,000 is a really good goal. That's a really successful in-bay. But if you think you could just do it and not go wrong, you're wrong. Best practice will yield 20,000 cars. Best practice adopting the in-bay express model can yield more. And again, it has a lot to do with so many factors. And again, you're asked, Jason, why do you think you know more than the AI? I'm not saying I do know more than AI. What I'm saying is there are hordes of in-bays out there that don't record their data. The machines can't record the data. They don't record the data, or they keep the cache. There's all kinds of reasons. Thousands and thousands of in-bays are washing 8,000, 10,000 cars a year, if that. Okay? That's what I'm trying to get across. So those averages aren't right. Those aren't the average. And the other reason I'm telling you that is to take best practice very, very serious. Simple menu, flow, ingress, egress, that kind of thing. Now let's talk about installers. This is a very tricky thing and touchy thing to talk about. And this is going to be the most difficult part of a difficult video because I know installers all across the country. I know installers all across the world. I'm friends with installers across the world. And you have some factors here. So the way it works, so the layman understand how it works, is an installer usually reps an equipment company or two. And they may have gotten, so in other words, they may own a Dodge dealership or a Toyota dealership, okay? And most installers don't own all of them. Most don't own more than one. They might have a couple. But the problem is, again, 20 plus years in car repair. It's not really an opinion. It's just the way it is. I'm a muscle car guy. I'm an American guy, but I buy a Toyota for a reason. I need my car to start first every time. It might be ugly, but I don't care. I needed to get 30, 40 miles a gallon and drive like a maniac and never have to maintain the thing. Okay. So Toyota's the answer. Honda's the answer. It's just a better vehicle for what I need. For an express in-bay, there are better vehicles for that. There are better vehicles that make you more money and have less maintenance and take less water and less everything else than others. But if an installer only owns one of these old legacy companies, that might be a piece of crap, but that's all he owns and that's all in your area, then he's going to sell the daylights out of this. He may not be doing you the best service. He may be honest, kind of, but if that's all he represents, then you can't get the machine that's going to serve you best. Okay. And then another installer might have the machine that's going to serve you best, but may not be the best installer, or they may not understand best practice. I know, again, people from all across the world, some really understand best practice, some don't. This is something I wrestle with all the time. So I would say you need to research both. You need to research these installers, their customers, and you need to research machines separately. There can be some big differences in machines. So that's what you want to check out first. And I can guide you, depending on where you are in the country, I can personally guide you to installers and machines. I don't know installers in every single area of the world or every single area of the country, but I know a lot. And it's a moving target. But I wanted you to understand that first. You might have an honest installer, but if they represent a terrible machine, you might like them. Or a terrible chemical, you might like them, but they still might not serve you best. And then someone who has the best machine, maybe you'll get a great install, maybe you won't. Then you might have to do best practice you learn from me or someone else who really knows what they're doing. And so, in other words, maybe this installer installed the best machine and did a great job of it, but he's guiding you wrong on best practice because he's been doing this 30 years and this is the best machine. He might be right about the machine, might be wrong about the machine, but let's say he's right about the machine, but he has no idea how to get huge volumes. His whole life, he's seen 18 to 20,000 cars as a great site. And I've seen these do 25,000 cars a year. I've seen these do 30. And I'm telling you, you could probably get 40 or 50,000 cars a year out of it. But it takes a different kind of business practice that he may or may not know. So again, I'm just trying to give you context of what to look out for, what to look for. And this installer thing's a big deal because I've been very fortunate and blessed to be exposed to a lot of car wash owners and a lot of installers. I'm in a really unique position I'm very grateful for. And recently, I started thinking about a few successful investor types, quote unquote, who didn't have any experience in car washing. And in this certain area, both or three or four of them succeeded wildly, okay? Wildly succeeded. And they listened to their installer. But their installer listened to best practice. Super experienced guy, does good installs. And additionally, he helped coach them best practice. And I happen to be involved a little bit with that as well. But he had it all right. And these owners did absolutely fantastic, but that's pretty rare to get everything. And you know what? I'm going to mention one more thing here. Message boards. Shift a little bit. I have nothing against the message boards. I've been on message boards since the 90s. International Automotive Technician Network, IATN. Awesome message board. That's how I started my own message board. People have to pay for it because it cut out all the crap. Well, now a lot of free message boards are out there, Facebook, different things. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of bad information on there. Everybody's trying to get something. Not everybody. I shouldn't say that. A lot of people will get commissions or different things for representing their brand, something they can install, their chemical that they can install. And again, there are good and bads. There are great chemicals. There are okay chemicals. A lot of us, I'm saying us because we're all human, are trying to take great pride in the numbers they've gotten or the decisions they've made. And when you have people that have made millions and millions of dollars worth of decisions, it's hard to say, I did something wrong. It's hard to say, yeah, I probably should have done it this way. It's hard to say I could have done it cheaper and made more money. These are tough things emotionally, right? That's why this is called subconscious sales. That's what we talk about here. But I'm telling you that because there's a lot of bad information on the message. There is some good information, but let's say it's 80-10 or 90-10 or 80-20. I would say there's more bad or short-sighted information on the message boards, and it's not complete stories because every single location has, 30 to 50 different factors, maybe more, that you need to consider. And most of that you won't find on the message boards. Those who are doing absolutely outstanding aren't commenting on the message boards as well. And here's why. Because they're building their empire. Okay. When my clients are doing 30 to 50,000 cars a year per bay, and the average for a new build, let's say it's 20,000 cars, or, a good build is 20,000, and there's a lot doing 8 to 10,000. Well, then, yeah, those doing 30, 50,000 a year per bay, they're not going to be on the message board sharing why, because they're trying to pick up more car washes because they're killing it. These guys have a plan. They're not going to share that, and they shouldn't. And obviously, as stated before, they're very short-sighted. People try to answer in a sentence or two, and that's just not the way it works. We all need a scope. We all need some context of how to answer a question properly for the most part. And I'm still learning like everybody else, in case I never make that clear. I'm always here to try to help and share. I don't share enough that I'm always learning too. That being said, there's another factor I like to mention. That's best practice. I've talked about that. I use that term a lot already, is the fundamentals. You have to get the fundamentals right. And if you're going to come in here thinking you have some type of silver bullet, you have some type of novel way of doing something, almost 100% of the time I've seen that not work. It's like an MMA fighter, okay? Say you have a super secret move like a video game, and you're like, man, if I do this move, no one has been able to defend me in this move, okay? So you have this novel idea for car washing. The problem is, no matter what kind of special move you have in MMA, you still can't be grossly overweight. You got to be able to go a few rounds. You got to be able to take a hit. You have to have your fundamentals down, right? No matter how good you think you are. And some people will try to do something novel, something different. They don't have the fundamentals and they don't succeed. And you're not going to succeed. You have to understand that humans, the end user just wants a relatively clean car really fast, in and out, and get on with their day. They want to get in and out of the vacuums quickly. They want to be able to pull easily in and out of your location. If you're trying to get tricky and you don't have those things down, again, you're going to have a heart attack in the first 30 seconds of your fight. And maybe your special move was special, but it's only special after you have the fundamentals down. Don't try to get cute. Have the fundamentals down first, and then you can get cute afterwards. In other words, the fundamentals are the core of your sundae that you're building, your ice cream sundae, and then maybe your cuteness will be some sprinkles on top, and it will enhance it. But for the most part, people are trying to put sprinkles on something that's not even ice cream. That's not where you want to start. And the other thing I like to say is be patient. There are good and bad deals out there. Sometimes you have to jump on a deal right away, but nobody should be trying to rush you for the most part. These are huge investments. And if someone's trying to pressure you into something, then take a step back. And you may be asking, who do you talk to? You know what? I know a few other consultants. And when it comes to tunnel, there might be a few other consultants out there that I could suggest besides myself. And I may even suggest, depending on what you're looking to do besides myself, when it comes to tunnels, I am much better at helping you when you're already up and running, helping with training, work culture, and sales training specifically. For tunnels, that's going to be my niche. If you're looking to build a tunnel, I can give you some advice, but there's better consultants that can help you build a tunnel from scratch. When it comes to in-bays, I honestly don't know anybody close to my level. Sorry, folks. I don't know how else to say that. It sounds absolutely disgusting to say that, but I know a lot of other tunnel guys that call me and are trying to hey, we need to learn, because they see things trending toward the in-bays. And again, I think this corner should have been turned many years ago, and it's going to continue to turn back toward in-bays. But the express in-bay model, kind of started in my area, not only in my area, but for the most part, it started in my area due to all kinds of factors. And it's slowly spreading. Myself, and I now know 3 other operators. So that's 4 of us. I've said this in a few other podcasts. There's 4 of us who have been really successful at tunnels and then learned how to run an express in-bay. And those who have done every aspect of the business would never go back to a tunnel. And I can't stress that enough. Again, there is a time and place for a tunnel. I'm not saying never think of building a tunnel, but for the most part, those of us who have a lot of experience in both and successful at both would trend toward the in-bay. Big time. I'm only telling you that because I don't know what's out there. There very well could be other great people out there consulting for in-bays. I just don't know of any. And part of it could be because I'm not paying attention. I'm busy doing my own thing. But I see very few people, if anyone, talking about express in-bays the way I'm talking about them and know how to set it up properly. Again, nothing special about me. I just happen to be fortunately exposed to a lot of different staffs, a lot of different owners, and all kinds of different forms of car washing. When it comes to self-service, for example, I'm learning off someone else because my self-serve game is probably the weakest out of all my skills. So I give people someone else's phone number. And I'm going to go down and learn from him soon because that's not dead yet either. And you know what? I think I'll leave it at that. I hope I was just able to give you all some context, some investors, some things to think about. Here's what you can do. Here are some options for you. For me, you can always like, share, subscribe. It goes a long way. I had an old YouTube channel. I haven't paid much attention to it, so I just started this new podcast. 2, I'll try to be better at putting links down below. So if you have a tunnel and looking to train your employees, I have an owner's forum for you as well as an employee forum. The employee is only $20 a month per employee, and they can be trained how to properly sell memberships. You'll absolutely crush it. It's great training. 3, if you're an in-bay owner, I have a very exclusive club. It's expensive. We have other successful in-bay owners that join on that. And basically, it's an expensive message board. Just a very small group of people talk about in-bays, and this will be location specific. If you're close to one of the other operators, then you're not allowed in the club. It's that simple because we're sharing very good information on it. So the other way to get a hold of me is through my website. There should be a link down there. I'm revamping the whole website thing, so that's why I don't say the link out loud. I don't know what it's going to be here in a minute. Or just find me on Facebook. And I might have an appointment link or two in here somewhere. But that's all I got for now. Folks, car washing is a great business. I hope this wasn't too doom or gloom. And there are people succeeding on building new car washes and getting into it from an investor or some type of different perspective where they have no experience. But again, there's a lot of people that are not doing well and have no background in car washing. So hopefully this gives you some things to think about. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your time. It's the most valuable thing you own, and I appreciate it greatly. Take care.